This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Dream Power Radio. This is the place where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love and rediscover the truth of who you really are. As any cook who's worth her salt will tell you, one of the greatest kitchen inventions ever created was the autopilot. Before this came about, in order to light a gas stove, the gas line had to be turned on, and a match had to be lit to get the pilot light going. We had a stove like this when I was a little girl, and I have to admit it scared the bejesus out of me every time I had to light it. I was always afraid too much gas would escape, and the oven would explode in front of me when the flame hit it. That worry went away when we got an oven with an automatic pilot. Boiling water or baking brownies was as easy as simply turning a dial. And with today's electronics, all I have to do now is push a button to get my meals going. Well, while an autopilot is a wonderful thing for kitchen work, it's not such a good thing when it comes to living your life. Too many of us set ourselves on autopilot and rush ourselves through our routines without giving it too much thought. That is, until the day we wake up and ask ourselves, is this really what life's all about? Well, my guest, certified integrative coach Nancy Pickard, knows all too well about what happens when we live our lives in neutral. That's why she's dedicated herself to helping others bring the passion back to their lives. Nancy is the author of the international best-selling book, Bigger, Braver, Better, Conquer Your Fears, Embrace Your Courage, and she knows what it takes to transform your life. So with that, welcome to Dream Power Radio, Nancy.
Thanks, Debbie. Thanks for having me.
So, Nancy, am I right that most people do live their lives on autopilot?
Yes, most people live their life on autopilot, and we all live our life on autopilot, or we wouldn't be able to drive our car or walk down the street or do any of the autonomic things that we do. But emotional autopilot is a totally different thing. So we go through our days and months and years, and we really don't stop and say, what do we want? What works for us? What's not working for us? Why are we getting triggered? Why is this happening? We don't ask ourselves those questions. What are my needs? What are my boundaries? And unless we wake up from the trance of autopilot, one day just rolls into the other, and 6 years go by, and all of a sudden we're like, wow, why aren't we happier? Or why are we still in the same place, even though we complain about it, or the same relationship or the same job? Why is our life not changing? And that takes us out of autopilot.
Right. And it keeps us in that stuck position. Because even when we realize, oh, we have been living like this, we kind of say, okay, what do we do now?
Now what? How do we change that? Well, that's why people come to me. They'll come to me because they're stuck and they're not really sure why they're stuck. They're not even sure exactly where they're stuck, or they think they didn't do something for the last year. And then they'll like check something and they'll be like, oh, wow, it's actually been 3 years, and they just don't even know it. It's just now 3 years have gone by since I wrote the book and never did anything with it, or said I wanted to move or change jobs. And, life just gets by. So the first step to get out of autopilot is to notice that you're in it. Stop yourself. And then I look with my clients to like, well, where are you in autopilot? What are your misery stabilizers? Are you binge watching, binge shopping? What are the things that you're doing that you need to be present and mindful so that you can make some changes and stay out of autopilot?
Okay, you just said this phrase, misery stabilizers. Could you go into that and kind of explain
Sure.
what that means?
Sort of like what it sounds like. We all do things to numb us out, right? To not feel the pain of loneliness, boredom, frustration, overwhelm, sadness, whatever is coming up in our life. We each have our own go-to. Some people have a drink or two, smoke a joint, go shopping, over exercise. We all have our go-tos that make us feel better in the moment. And being aware of them will actually help you to not overindulge in them. You're never going to get rid of them. We all need breaks from it. We all need to numb out from time to time, but excessive numbing out is what we're trying to avoid.
That's an important point because, we do need a release. We can't always be,
Even
if we're not aware, but we're still working all the time or doing things, we need that release, but not when that takes over and that's all we do.
Correct.
Well, one of the things that often keeps people stuck where they are is fear. So what is your take on fear? And do we try to get rid of it or just face it?
You're never going to get totally rid of fear because it's actually there to keep us safe. So I don't want to get rid of fear that says, don't go down that dark alley at midnight. You want that. Or this double black diamond is actually too much for you. Maybe you shouldn't go down that. I don't want that to go away. What you want to go away are the fears where the negative self-talk is, that's not for you. You're not all that. That's too big for you. All of those things, that's the fear that you actually want to harness, have compassion around it, and move forward anyway. So I use fear as a driving force for change, and I have for many, many years. That's why my book, Bigger, Better, Braver, is all about how to be bigger, better, braver. Use that as a mantra, how to move beyond your fears, use it as a driving force for change and change your life. And so anything that comes up that I'm afraid to do is a sign that I need to do it. So I get asked to build a course and I'll say yes immediately. And then, of course, the imposter syndrome is like, oh, you're not ready for this. You can't do this again, or this is too big for you. And I know that by stepping in, I'm going to become exactly the thing I just finished telling myself. So I can prove to myself over, and that's growth. I keep jumping in and saying yes to these things, shushing the fear, moving forward anyway. And then I'm that. The next time I'm asked a similar request, I can do it without even thinking twice about it. And that's how you up your level and up your game and keep changing and changing and changing.
So it's sort of like building up your fear muscle.
Correct. So it's actually building up your courage muscle.
That's true.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. I guess the opposite of fear would be courage then.
Yeah.
So what is the first step to take to that? Because it's very easy to say, oh, yes, say yes and do it. But how do you help get somebody to make that first step toward moving from fear to courage?
Well, you need small steps. You need to step outside your comfort zone, one small step at a time. There's this little joke about how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So the elephant is the big thing that you're trying to do. And if you take very small steps that are very doable, you hold yourself in integrity by following through with what you say you're going to do, you step one little toe in, you're successful with it, and you realize, oh, that wasn't so bad. Let's try another and another and another. So you got to really chunk it down to sizable action steps that will allow you, you can't lose 50 pounds. Let's lose 5 pounds. You can't run a marathon. Let's run a mile. And then mile after mile after mile, pound after pound after pound, it's no longer an elephant.
That's so important. So you're taking it in those little steps so you can get those little victories.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the beauty of working with a coach, is that the coach becomes your accountability partner. A lot of times my clients do things not because they really want to do it, but because they assigned that. They said they were going to do it, and now they must follow through before our next session. And so that gives them the impetus to push themselves, even if they aren't really ready. And if nobody was watching and they didn't have a coach on the call next week, they probably wouldn't get it done.
Yeah, and that's another point to bring up, is that you don't have to do it alone.
Right.
A lot of people think that, okay, I'm in this place, it's not working for me, and I have to figure out how to do it by myself.
And you don't.
You don't.
Half the time it's not how, but who can help you to do this? Who knows more about this than you do? Who can you call on for help and support? And also writing down a plan, telling it to other people, that makes it real. It's not just in your head and you can just forget about it and nobody will know. If you start to tell people that this is your plan and you write it down, now you've got an extra level of accountability to hold you to it, to make you follow through. That's really important.
I could certainly see how it is. Another thing that people will tend to do most of the time, not even realizing they're doing it, is self-sabotage. So how do you get people to see that they're doing that and to work with
A
it?
lot of clients come to me knowing that they're a self-sabotager. I keep doing the same thing, even though I think I'm doing something different. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the next part of it and I see, oh, I'm doing exactly the same thing I always do. And that's because we have these disempowering beliefs and commitments in our self-conscious that we're not aware of, and they rule our operating system. So you actually need to work with somebody to uncover those beliefs so that you can make a different choice. If you have a belief inside, you're unlovable, you're unworthy, you're broken, your needs don't matter, your voice doesn't matter, then change is not going to happen because that's your go-to. Your brain likes what it knows. It's called cognitive dissonance. And the brain doesn't like to spend calories. When you make a change, that burns a lot of calories. When you do the same thing that your brain already knows, it's like your brain goes to sleep and say, oh yeah, I can do that. Whether you're successful or not, your brain likes what it knows. Doesn't care if the outcome is bad. It's used to it. Oh, I can handle that. That's okay. So we need to be able to expand that and not go into this cognitive dissonance and try something new by realizing what works and what doesn't work and what are the different things that you do that are self-sabotaging. What are the beliefs underneath that? Change those, you can change the habits.
Okay, when you say you can change the self-limiting belief, let's just do the example of I'm unlovable, which
Okay.
I think a lot of people go that way.
As a child, you didn't get the nurturing that you needed. Certain things happened, and in an instant, you made this belief that I'm unlovable. And so now you go through life looking for evidence to prove your limiting belief is true. You pick out guys that you'll never get. You don't get them. Look, see, I'm unlovable. You get into a relationship, and because you believe you're unlovable, you actually sabotage the relationship. So then you can say, see, look, I'm unlovable. If you change that belief, if you figure out, that's what I do with my clients, you figure out where the belief first was formed and why, and how that belief kept you safe as a child. Because if you grow up in a family where you feel unlovable, you don't try to push into love. You just stay in the background. You don't make trouble. You do your own thing. You don't look to get your needs met by other people. You become very independent because of that. So on some level, it keeps you safe as a child, but as an adult, it keeps you small. So once you realize that and you see why it was formed, and then you thank your inner child for keeping you safe and getting you to this adult stage of life, but that belief no longer is protecting you. Now it's keeping you small. So now you do the work to say, you know what? I'm an adult. And honestly, I am lovable. And here's some evidence to prove that I'm lovable. And I'm going to change that disempowering belief to a new empowering belief that says I am lovable. And now I'm going to do action steps, and I'm going to, tap, or I'm going to write out sticky notes with the affirmation on my mirror that I am lovable. I'm going to say it to myself every day. I'll do mirror talk. I'll start to just manifest about how lovable I am. And now I'll go back out into life and look for another partner and make some changes, all from the vantage point of I am lovable. And let's see how different my life will be now.
And it's just realizing that, that phrase "I'm lovable" is a story that you told yourself as a child, and you now have the ability as an adult to write a new story where
Exactly.
you are the most lovable person you could be.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so with that, we are going to take a short break here. We are talking about transforming our lives with Nancy Pickard, and we'll be right back.
From bitter to better, wrong into right.
I'm Kelly Sullivan Walden, aka Dr. Dream, and I just wrote the book, A Crisis is a Terrible Thing to Waste, The Art of Transforming the Tragic into Magic. You can pre-order it wherever books are sold.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're talking about transformation with Nancy Pickard. Well, Nancy, I understand that shadow work is very important to you in one of your specialties. And it's interesting to me because shadow work is also something we do in dream work as well. How do you approach getting to see your clients what they can't see in front of them?
I have my magic sauce are these internal processes that actually they close their eyes, they get out of their head, which is where all that ego and all those beliefs lie, get into your heart. And I ask them a series of questions that break down where the discrepancy is between what they say they want and what they're getting. And I bring it back to different things in their childhood. And little by little, these questions elicit what that belief is. So what happened? What were the feelings? When else did you have those feelings? Now go back to the earliest time you had those feelings. Something happened. You made a meaning about it. And I'm looking for a meaning that sounds like I am. I am broken. I am unworthy. I am not safe alone. I am unlovable. I need to be perfect to be loved. I need to control everything to be safe. My voice doesn't matter. These are all examples of shadow beliefs. They're beliefs that are limiting, but they keep us safe as children. And then we have unconscious commitments, which is the strategy that we use to keep that belief alone. So if my shadow belief is I'm not safe alone, my unconscious commitment is to never be alone, to always twist myself up in a pretzel to be digestible to other people. So everyone will want to be my friend and every man will want me in their life and I'll be the perfect partner and blah, 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 so that I'm not alone. That's my strategy. That's my unconscious commitment. And that keeps my belief alive. So let's say you're 5 years old or 8 years old and you stand up in class and you read and you misspell a word or you mispronounce a word and everybody laughs at you. Happens every day. You in an instant make an unconscious belief or a commitment, both, that I'm stupid. I need to stay quiet so no one will know. That keeps you safe in school. You never raise your hand. You don't ever try to do that again whenever you don't have to. And it keeps you safe and nobody laughs at you and nobody knows you're stupid. And then you grow up and you actually get a zillion degrees because you think you're stupid and you're going to prove to the world that you're not stupid. But deep inside, that little child still thinks they are. And so you still don't give your opinion in your relationships. You don't speak up in a board meeting. And then you start to get passed over for jobs because people don't even know you have that in your brain. So you've got to actually do the work around uncovering that. So give yourself a new belief that, yes, I have opinions and they're good ones and I'm safe to share them. That's a new empowering belief. That's how you flip those over and change them.
Yeah, it seems that all of these things all sort of revolve around the idea of that we want to feel safe. So what is it about the human condition that makes that the default position, whether it works for us or not?
Well, as babies, we're helpless. And so safety is our number one concern. Feeling loved, being held, being cared for, that's the number one thing. And so even from the very beginning, our little child starts to have wounds. You're crying in the crib and nobody comes right away, subconsciously. My needs will not be met. I'm unlovable. Like those things just happen. And they're actually from our wounded child. We have an adaptive child, and that adaptive child is the child who adapted to their wounds. That adaptive child kept us safe all through our childhood. We learned how to be in the world with those limitations. The adaptive child is the one that really runs the show, unless we recognize where we're being triggered, why we're sabotaging ourselves, and get into the third part of our brain, which is the wise adult part of our brain, where we can actually make changes, look at it, kind of calm down the adaptive child brain and make wise adult new decisions. And that's the goal, is to have the whole brain integrated so our wise adult brain gets to take over.
Well, that is a very worthy goal to have. But sometimes when people get the realization of what's holding them back and they get this information, they still resist doing the steps that will move them forward. So how do you instill that kind of self-motivation in people?
Well, I mean, my clients don't need self-motivation because they're working with a coach, right? And so that's the beauty of working with a coach. If you're on your own, I suggest you actually find an accountability buddy, and you each are working on something, or you just get an accountability that help hold you accountable. Because when nobody's holding you accountable, it's hard to learn to hold yourself accountable if that's not something that you are already doing. So I try to teach people that to love yourself and trust yourself, it starts with a self-accountability. It starts with following through and doing the things you say you're going to do, and not steering left and right, and staying in the trajectory of where you say you want to go. And that's how you get there.
Do you have some examples of people who've had breakthroughs working with you?
Oh my God, all my clients, really all my clients, because the disempowering beliefs are so limiting that when you uncover them, you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe how long I've been living under that. And yeah, I can see that I don't need that now. So then they learn how to quit their job or set healthy boundaries or make their priorities, their number one priority is their self, and to learn how to do all of those things that they were too afraid to do. So getting in a relationship, getting out of a relationship, starting a new job, traveling across the world, telling their boss that they're crossing their boundaries, telling their partners where they're crossing their boundaries, telling their children where they're crossing their boundaries. These are all things that people learn to do with me, and then they're out there. They become like these boundary badasses, and they learn how to do all of this, and they feel really good about themselves. Because when you make yourself a priority and you stop people pleasing and you stop saying yes to everything and you start making yourself a priority, it feels phenomenal.
And they get to work off of that good feeling.
Yes.
Take it from there.
Yes, exactly.
As I said in the intro, you wrote the book Bigger, Better, Braver. What made you decide to write it?
Well, I was 61 years old when I went and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. And I kind of wanted to write a book for my clients about what's your Kilimanjaro? What's your mountain? What's the thing you've been afraid to do that you've always wanted to do? And how do you get there? So for people who don't want to hire a coach, my book is a step-by-step process, which is exactly what I do with my clients, with uncovering your shadow beliefs, uncovering your goal and vision, your unconscious commitments, how to have a growth mindset, all the different step by step, so that you actually uncover your big Kilimanjaro moment. And by the end of the book, hopefully you've taken that jump and you've gotten what you wanted.
Okay, I have to ask you about this. Did you always want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro?
No, but I used to own a training gym, and I am very athletic. It's always been a part of who I am. So when I was turning 60, I really did I wanted to do some big thing, something really spiritual, something physical, something way outside my comfort zone. And that was the perfect choice.
And how did that feel?
Amazing, phenomenal, life-changing.
Do you have plans to climb more mountains?
No, as a matter of fact, my boyfriend and I just finished watching Aftershock, which is a 4 series on Netflix about Everest and the big earthquake that happened in Kathmandu and in Everest. And so, no, the answer to that is absolutely not. Kilimanjaro, even when I was on it, I knew this was it. Like this was my big thing. And I don't need another big thing like that.
Yeah, but you did prove by example that when you set a goal that you really want and you work at it, you do it and you get it.
Yes, for sure.
Well, you touched on it a second that before you started this coaching work, you owned a gym. So what made you decide to pivot from physical training to mental training?
Well, my gym was in New Jersey and I had it for 16 years. But when I got divorced and left New Jersey, I left the gym behind as well. And so I really hadn't planned on going back to work. I was living in Colorado and I was playing and exercising and enjoying it. But I started to feel that there was more to life. I wasn't utilizing the gifts I had. I wasn't being bigger, better, braver. And I had another trauma in my romantic life, at which point I started working with a coach myself. And then I realized that was just, I'm going from outer fitness to inner fitness. And it was a beautiful transition for me. And I love it.
Is there a final thought you'd like to leave for our audience?
Get off the couch. The last person in a race still beats the person on the couch. So get off the couch, take small steps, hire a coach or get yourself a friend who's an accountability partner, and don't let fear hold you back. This is the only life you've got.
And Nancy, how can people find out more about you and your work?
Nancy Pickard, lifecoach.com. Pickard is my last name. Everything is on my website. How to get my book, how to get a free call with me. A couple of different freebies are on there. I'm on social media, Nancy Pickard Life Coach on Instagram, on Facebook. Email me, get on my email list so that you get any kind of offers that I have. I've got courses online. I mean, it's all available. Just check me out on my website or DM me on Facebook or Instagram.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
We've been speaking about personal transformation with Integrative Coach Nancy Pickard. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio.